And basically what happened is Jim ended up being my best advocate and my best friend. But it was not saying, I can't do this. It was not saying, this is I just have to survive here. It's always surviving, and then it's that, silver lining business. And sometimes, I think, oh, this is not going to work. But it did, and I will say I had to lay people off in that job, and it was terrible. I hated it. But that was because September 11th showed up. And in Virginia, that, I don't know enough about what was going on in all these other states, but the whole country was in trouble at that time. We lost money from the state. I lost $100,000, and my budget was about $500,000. But what I did, and as we've talked here, is you still have to plan ahead. And so some of the money that I was getting for other projects, I kept putting aside, and part of that is because of that first job I had when they hired me, and they didn't have enough. So then my time's just about up. I'm at the Hickory Museum of Art right now, and Hickory has had all kinds of problems. Part of this has to do with the whole economic situation. Around 2000, and we were the furniture capital of the world, and everything's going to China and going to Europe. And so what we have done is to think in terms of bare bones strategic planning. What are you doing, and how is that helping your community, and how is that strengthening your organization, and how is that helping so if something doesn't work, you don't close. We're at a point where I have a collection, I have a staff of about 15 people, 4 of them are full-time, part-time. We've been around now for 65 years. So every time I move along, they've been around longer and there's farther to fall, but you also have to make sure that that's not what happens. So I'm going to let everybody else say their stories, and then we'll come back and I can maybe give you some tools and talk a little bit about some things that you might be able to use before you end up going home. You can think about those things. Thank you so much.
Well, hello and welcome everybody. I'm Van Shields. I thought of today's session in terms of sort of what has been my biggest experience that's been a continuous thread over the last 12 years since I've been here, which is just basically change management. I arrived here as the director of the Museum of York County, and within 6 months we had merged with another county-supported cultural institution that owned historic Brattonsville and also managed the McKelvey Center, or a portion of the McKelvey Center in York. So we then became an organization that had 3 program sites, if you will. And so it's always been about aligning everybody that works together under one sort of corporate umbrella and trying to meet the same mission goals. I want to just tell you about some things that we've done along the way to help us, that have helped us over the years, which have really, really helped us in the past couple of years, and especially with the economic downturn. Just some things that we have emphasized pretty consistently. One is strategic planning. We had a strategic plan when I arrived here. There was a strategic plan for the Museum of York County. It was literally, and you've heard this phrase before, sitting on the shelf. It was figuratively sitting on the shelf. It was metaphysically sitting on the shelf. It was spiritually sitting on the shelf. Nobody was paying any attention to it. I have my own opinions about why that was true, but I realized that if that was the fact, then the plan must not be very good. So with the merger, it gave us an opportunity to kind of open up our eyes about the art of the possible and start planning in earnest. So we started our strategic planning process about a year after I arrived, and we published our first plan the year after, and we've just published our second plan a year ago, but we updated the plan continuously. I cannot emphasize enough, whether you're a big or a small institution, is to have a written plan and use that as your guidebook, use it as your direction, use it as your playbook every day. In fact, we now measure all of our work in the context of, is it fulfilling our strategic plan? And we actually have our strategic plan major goals on the side of our internal stationery. So every time we do anything, we say, is it fulfilling our strategic plan? When we have a meeting with internal or external audiences about business matters, we say, is it fulfilling our strategic plan? We put what the topic of the meeting is underneath the major goal that we think it's related to in the strategic plan. That's very important. The second part of that is to create a planning culture within your organization so that you are always thinking ahead and always planning. Again, under that very broad strategic plan, you are creating a culture where everybody is moving all their business as far forward as possible. So that as you do that, you are also trying to imagine the context for when that program might play out. And that ranges from the fundamental issues like, are you going to have a major program on a day when your next door neighbor is having a major program, to the sort of more interesting ramifications of, are you going to have a major program at a time when everybody has decided to stop selling flowers and your major program is going to be based on flowers or whatever. So the point is that I encourage our staff to think until your brain hurts and think about the future and consider the context that everything that you're doing is being done in. Thinking is the cheapest and most important part of everything that we do every day, because it's really building your sort of internal capacity, if you will. So that's important. Some very important aspects of how we do business that have helped us recently is that we're dedicated, we have a mission, and we are dedicated to carrying out our mission in a way that uses themes instead of topics. And this is an important sort of nuance for those of you that are fans of the museological world, and it's a kind of a nuance that is really about, you're creating a thematic approach to your programming. So it's more interesting, it has the potential to hit an emotional responsive chord, and it also gives you the ability to create a continuity of offering, which is the second principle that we operate by. A continuity of offering means that if you build an audience for a particular kind of program based on a particular theme, you must continue to do that kind of programming so that you can have continuity of programming. And then the third component of that is to have an understanding of your audience and audience specialists. So we have spent a lot of time and energy and money into developing audience specialists on our staff. So we have a person who deals with early learners, we have a person who deals with school groups, we have a person who deals with adults, and we have a person who deals with sort of large major public scale programs. So what's the difference between a topic and a theme? Well, slavery is a topic, and you might think of a theme having to do with slavery like something like slaves had it really bad. Well, you know, that's not really a theme. A theme might be more something like enslaved peoples had very interesting ways of coping with just how bad it was. And that creates an opportunity for somebody to put themselves in the shoes of that sort of person. It gives them a possibility to get into a theme mindset. So that's a very important part of what we try to do. We're not always successful at doing it, but it's very important. So those particular tools, themes instead of topics, continuity of offering, and audience specialization have been very important, and they have grown up just in the past few years.